Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this little bugger right here, Time of Legends, Joan of Arc. Now this is a miniatures game that has a modular board and a lot of dice rolling, a lot of special abilities on either side. So there's a lot going on. I'm not going to be able to go over every little thing that's in the game, but hopefully my goal here is to simply provide you with an idea of how the game plays. And hopefully you can do that. Let's go ahead and get down to the table and I'll give you a look. We're just going to go through basically one round of phases, and that'll give you the idea of how the game plays. All right, so phase one is the council phase, and the council phase is what happens up here in this general part of the board here. First thing that we do is we turn over the round card. Now, once we turn over the round card, it'll show how many orders are going to be given to each player to carry out during the course of that round. So we have 3 banners here, which means that each side will get 3 basic orders to carry out. And then once those are handed out, we go to the War Council cards, which are over here, and we turn over 3 of them. These War Council cards are now going to be chosen by either side to do certain things. For example, this one is able to turn one regular activation into a charge activation. This one says that you can move one of your rally points and rally one allied unit, or you can get an additional charge activation cube. And finally, this third card over here will get you 2 legend cards and a legend token, and then you can discard a legend card out of your hand. So with the English being first, they're going to go ahead and choose first. They're going to go ahead and choose to take this card, which will give them 2 extra legend cards and another legend point, and then they have to discard one of their legend cards. And then the French are going to choose to take this card, and they're going to choose to take the extra charge activation on their turn as well. Now, the last thing that you would do on a council phase is that if you had any upgraded characters, you would have to pay an experience point, which are these things here that you get from killing off different units, to keep them at the level that you upgraded them to. So you'd have to do that during the council phase. Then you move on to the first player's turn. Now in this specific scenario, the English are the ones that are going first. So they would actually do their turn and all of the things, all of the actions that they want to do. And then the French player is going to do their turn. And then we'll come to a camp phase where we're going to take care of any units that are wounded or disrupted or something to that effect. So during the English player's first turn, they're going to go ahead and take their cards, and they have one here that says, at the start of your turn, gain an extra order of your choice. All right, and that takes 2 of these legend tokens to do that, denoted down here by the cost, and then that will be placed in the discard pile for that. And then they're going to choose a reactivation order like this. Now, at this point, let's just go ahead and tell you what kind of activations we have here. First of all, we have the general activations that can be used to simply activate an area of your choice. Then you have charge activations, which can be used as a regular generic activation, but you won't get the extra oomph that the charge activation does. What that basically does is it gives the unit the ability to move and then attack. Then you also have a reactivation token, which can also be used as a general activation, but you also can use this one to reactivate an area that has already been activated. Normally, once you place an activation cube in an area, that one's done. You can't reactivate that area again. But if you have a reactivation token, you would be able to do that and activate that area a second time. And then there are interrupt actions, which can be used as a general action, just like the other ones can, but you can also use them during your opponent's turn to interrupt their turn in between activations. And so now with the English player's turn, we're going to go ahead and start playing activations. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to activate the mounted bowmen over here. And the mounted bowmen say that at the beginning or end of their activation, mounted bowmen may be replaced by bowmen. So we are going to do that. Now, we did that as a purely defensive measure, because that's pretty much what we are wanting to do. We don't really want to use the mounted bowmen for their haste or anything like that, so we went ahead and changed them so we can actually get rid of that card now. And now we have bowmen that are ready to be activated, and their range is 2 hexes away, so we could take a pot shot at these guys, which we're going to go ahead and do. So the bowmen here have the opportunity to roll 2 dice in combat. They have a range of 2, and then they have an arcing style of shot, not a direct style, which would only have a range of 1, and it would have a different icon there. And then while they're attacking, they have the ability to turn shields into disrupts. And then here at the bottom, it has a bonus action ability. It says at the start of the game, receive 1 stakes. As a bonus action, you may place 1 stakes in the bowman's area. All right, so that's pretty neat. We're going to go ahead and use that ability on some of the other bowmen in a minute because these guys were actually mounted bowmen, so they didn't get stakes at the beginning of the game, as do these regular bowmen over here. So what's going to happen here is they're going to go ahead and take a shot. They get 2 dice per base, so we're going to be rolling 4 yellow dice, and we have a disrupt and a pushback. So these are both nothings. Now what would happen here is the French would be able to roll their defense, which is 1 black die. So there are 2 of those units here. I'm going to ahead and roll these, and they had nothing that helped them. So there's 1 disrupt and 1 pushback. So one of these guys is going to have to go back here. The other one is going to go up here to the disrupted part, and we'll deal with him during the camp phase. So now we have some more activation cubes that we can go here, and so we're going to go ahead and activate, let's see, we're going to go ahead and activate this area right here. And this area is going to have 1 unit move in here. And then these 2 guys are going to stay here, but these guys were bowmen at the beginning of the game, so we're going to go ahead and use that special ability to put stakes right here and stakes right here, which is basically just defensive type stuff. And then at the end of their activation as a bonus action, they're also able to place some stakes right here like this. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and activate this group over here. We'll have these guys move up. But before they do, we're going to go ahead and put down some stakes right there. And then we'll have 1 guy move in here, and we'll have another guy move in here like this. He will just stay there. That will be the last thing that we do. So we come through our reserves phase, where we take any activation tokens that we've had off the board and put them back into the common supply. Any unused actions that are up here are able to move down to a reserve spot. Notice that you can only reserve 3, and then that would be the end of my turn. Now, during the French player's turn, we need to cover a lot of area before we can get our melee units into battle. So we're going to be using a lot of our cubes here to do that. So we're going to activate this area first, and we're going to go ahead and send these guys over here, and we'll send these 2 over here like this. And that will be our activation. This little token here means that this is the rally area. Whenever these troops, if these troops come back, this is the area to which they will return. And I think what we're going to do here is use one of our charge actions and put that right here. Now what the charge action enables them to do is it allows them to move to, and then they can attack an adjacent area. So since this is all one area here, we can attack adjacent to that area right there. They can actually attack with 2 red dice, and it's a melee attack, and then they're going to be defending with 1 die as well, but they do have the charge ability to give to them. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we're attacking these 2 troops right here. So we're going to be rolling 4 red dice, and they're going to be getting some defense as well. But let's see here. We have 2 disrupts and 1 pushback. This shield doesn't do any good, so we're just going to put it over there. And then these 2 guys here, the bowmen, have a white die in defense. So they're each going to be able to roll 1 white die. This is not going to be good, I don't think. Oh, nope, doesn't do any good whatsoever. So these two are, doesn't do any good. So these two are happen first. So both of these people get sent to the area here. Now, these mounted knights would be able to take the area if they want to, but we're not going to. We're just going to stay right there like that. And that would be the end of that combat. And then next, since we can, we're going to go ahead and activate this group right here. And we're going to move them into this forested area here because that will provide some support for us from the volley of arrows that's probably going to happen next round. And I think that'll be the end of our phase. So during the reserves phase, these would come off and get put back into their respective reserves. And then these would be moved down to be able to be used next turn. And that ends the second player's turn. So now we come to the fourth phase, which is the camp phase, and this is where each player is going to be rolling to see if their troops come back or if they have to stay in the infirmary, or it's possible for them to be delayed returns, so they would come here, or they could actually die. All right, so the British player is going to roll for both of these here. So the first one, all right, so the hourglass symbol means that they are a delayed rally, so they'll come back to this place. And then the second one here rolls, and this is actually a rally. So they would actually come back onto the board right here, just like this. And now the French player needs to roll. What happens there? Okay, so this disrupt face, right here, means that they simply stay in this area. Now, if they had rolled this face right here, it means that they actually die from their wounds, and we showed you all the other faces that could have possibly happened. So what will happen here is on the next camp phase, these people will be able to come back to their rally area, and these guys will have to make another roll later on. Now, a couple of different things here. You have your leaders or generals or something to that effect. So they have, just like the regular troop cards, they have what dice they're going to be rolling in combat over here, what kind of attack it is, what kind of defense they're going to be rolling down here. But heroes actually have hit points. So these are the number of times that this guy can be wounded before he's actually going to be removed from the field of battle. Up here you have a number where you can upgrade this person. So if you pay 5 experience points, you can upgrade him to a level 2, and you can choose which side you want him to come up on for his level 2. So you have both sides here, and there's slight differences in what he is able to do. But there's also down on the bottom part of the screen, there's something that I didn't actually use in the playthrough, but it's pretty cool. It's called Command. And so as a first level hero here, he can command one unit one space away and activate them as if they were given a regular activation cube. Terrain also has an effect on the different kinds of things that are out there. For example, the hills over there, if archers are on the hills, then they have a +1 to their range of firing. Forests will allow you to basically, when you defend, you can re-roll one of your dice that you do. Another thing that didn't really get to go over is the different peasants that are in the game. Now, with this specific scenario, with it just being introductory, there's limited use of the actual civilians, but in a regular or a more advanced scenario, the civilians are going to have special abilities. You can recruit civilians on your turn. You can talk to them with dialogue cards that will allow you to figure out which, for example, you ask them a question, one of these questions here. The regular questions are just there. These red ones are a little bit more risky, so you might be taking some type of advance. And then your opponent will read whatever question it is you want to ask, and then this is the response. So you can do that as a bonus action. In some other scenarios, if the person you're wanting to talk to has that little dialogue bubble above it. So there's a lot of things that you can do in this game. I cannot go over every single thing in this review, but hopefully what I've shown you gives you a basic idea of how the game plays. The gameplay that I showed you is just to give you a real taste, or just a little tidbit of an idea of what the game plays like. There's a battle mode that you can use where each unit is ascribed a certain number of points, and you build your army up to 1,200 points or 1,000 points or whatever, and then you take your army against somebody else's army. So there's a battle mode that you can do that. There are scenarios upon scenarios upon scenarios in the rule book and in the scenario book and the other books that come and the other expansions that are there. So there's a bunch of different scenarios that are out there as well. You can play battle mode. There's just a number of different ways that you can play this, and they all kind of branch out together. Wow, there's just so much here, and it's so cool. So let's go ahead and get to my pros and cons, shall we? So my first pro of the game is the fact that it has its basis in historical context. It's not just a fantasy game for the sake of being a fantasy game. It has its roots, I guess you could say, in actual historical events, whether it be some report that was given by a peasant who saw a really hairy dude out there somewhere and just reported it as being a werewolf. Those kinds of things are what provide the basis for many of the things in this game, and I really enjoy that. I think it's great that we have historical content, just tried and true, but then on top of that, there's also all these other kinds of stories that came up and were reported to garrisons and whatnot that are the basis of those elements in this game, and I like that a lot. Now, my second pro of the game is the component quality. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the miniatures and all that kind of stuff, but on top of that, you have all of this terrain that is coming in the core box as well, and that's one thing I want to make sure I point out here. All of the stuff that we use is only core box material, so what you see is kind of what you get as far as that's concerned. I didn't show you any of the other stuff that came in their Kickstarter. This is just what the core box has in it. So I really like the fact that this stuff that I showed you today is what you're gonna be able to purchase, I hope, at some point in the future, because this is an amazingly well-produced game. The artwork, the graphic design, everything just kind of bleeds together to provide this thematic enthrallment, I guess you could say, that just won't go away. And I love it when games do that. The miniatures are a smaller scale than what I'm used to playing with, but that's okay because they're still really well done. There's a lot of really nice details for the size that they are. The bigger the model, the more detail you can get into it. The smaller the model, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that, but they've done a very good job with that. All of the different cards and the artwork that's employed on those is really well done as well. So it's not just like we spent all our money on the miniatures. No, they really kind of spread things out a lot. Even the hexes that make up the board, the modular board, have really great artwork on them depicting the different kinds of lands that you're going to be making up your board. So that's great. I just really like it. As far as we're talking about components, the player aid, while it was a little bit verbose, especially with two-sided, was useful during the games as well. So that's cool too. Another pro about the game is that it is very simple to learn how to play the game. It is not over convoluted. Now, you can branch out and it gets a little bit more difficult as you branch out, but the core system that's being used is very simple and it's very kind of efficient in how they do it, having the different kinds of activations and the fact that all of them can be used as just a general activation, or you can use them as their special kind of activation. I really enjoy that system a lot. It makes a lot of sense. It's intuitive that you have certain kinds of orders that only can be given to a certain number of troops if you want the full effect of them, but you can use them as just a regular activation too. I really enjoy that. One of the games that I played, I was teaching a guy that was not only new to this game, he had never played this game before, but he's also new to gaming. And now he was a rather astute fellow, so I'm not kind of over stating this, but he picked it up immediately, and he, at the end of the game, he said, I love this game. I love how simple it is. I love how it's very strategic, and he just kept going on and on about how much he enjoyed the game. And this guy's new to gaming. I'm not saying that Joan of Arc is a gateway game. I'm not saying that at all. But he was a guy who was able to pick it up. you know, and that says something about the system. Another pro of the game for me were the different kinds of cards that are employed. I like how each round you have a certain number of activations that you're going to be able to get, and they're the same for both players. And then on top of that, you have the War Council cards, which will be able to give you a little bit of a different twist for that turn, or something to that effect, give you a little bit of a leg up, but you get to choose which ones you have, and I like that as well. Then on top of that, you've got the Legend cards, which have a little bit of a special aha type stuff that you can do, or I'm going to save up this and really hit them hard later on. I love the card play that is in here as well. On top of that, we'll hit on the different kinds of units and abilities that are out there, and how each kind of unit feels different than the other. Now, you have different kinds of bowmen and different kinds of knights and all that kind of stuff, and all within their particular part, they play kind of the same, but a set of bowmen play differently than a squad of mounted knights. So there's also foot knights, and there's just so much flavor and flair to this game, and it really comes out in the different things that the cards give you. I really enjoy it when games do that, because it's not just I have, you know, generic infantryman, they are moving down the field, and then yes, I have generic mounted knight and he comes down. It doesn't feel that way to me. It just has so much to it, and I really enjoy when games do that. It's just a great experience. Now, my final pro of the game is the rule book. Now, I know that there are some threads out there that talk about known problems and all of this kind of stuff, but generally speaking, learning how to play the game from the rule book is not difficult. It reads well. It gives you very succinctly what each round and what each phase is going to have, what you do in each phase and all that kind of stuff. And it does it in a chronological order. That's not really right. It does it in a well-ordered way. So I like that when rulebooks can do that. And there's a balance there that it reached that I liked a lot, of explanation and showing me an example of what they're talking about. Now, some cons for the game, I don't have a whole lot, but one of them is setup time. There is, even with the smaller introductory scenario, there are so many parts to it. Cards, unit cards, hero cards, terrain, the different kinds of buildings and the models, and putting the right bases on the models and getting the models out, and all of the different decks of cards that have to be shuffled or arranged in a certain order depending upon the scenario. All of those different things add up to a lot of setup time, and that's a small detractor for me. There are other games like HeroScape that take so much time to set up, longer than this, and then the gameplay isn't rewarding enough for me to want to go through that setup. With this one, I do want to go through that setup because I think the game is that much rewarding. But it's mentioned as a con here because there is a pretty heavy setup time that's involved with this game, because there's so many elements that have to converge. The only other con that I have here is that I have noticed that some of the different models have a little bit of a droopiness to them. For example, these knights here have a droopy, the lances are kind of bent out of shape and so forth. So those are the only kinds of things. A little bit of hot water will fix it, no worries, no problem, but I just wanted to mention it as a minor thing. The type of plastic that they used will allow for this kind of thing to happen. But that's minor in my opinion, I think, because not all of the miniatures did that. Some of them have a little bit where the model is a little bit bent because it came that way in shipping. There's not much you can do about that, I think, on the production side of it, other than just using a more rigid plastic, and then you have to worry about a susceptibility to breaking and cracking and all that other kind of stuff. So this isn't a big con for me, but I felt like I needed to mention it because it did happen where you have some spears and lances and swords that are just not straight. And so all in all, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. I really did enjoy this game a lot. The production copy did not disappoint my liking of the game from having played the prototype versions of it. The game is still there. What I enjoyed doing with the prototype versions, I can do with this version, and it looks even better. So this is the kind of game that I would highly recommend to any strategic miniatures gamer that's out there that loves history, but also likes fantastical type stuff that's going on. It just has a great, vast amount of stuff going on in it. And I just really enjoyed it a lot. It did not disappoint at all. So that's it from me for Time of Legends, Joan of Arc, a 9 out of 10. Go try before you buy, if at all possible, because there's a lot there and you're going to spend a lot of money if you really want to go all in with it. So there you have it. Thanks for joining me. We certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys in Kels on the flip side. Take care.